President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had with the President of France, Macron. Let's take that one and I'll tell you about the breakdown.
Some people around here. I think there is a fundamental misstatement of the issue in the question. We can no longer continue to make policy for ourselves, in our country, in our region, in our continent, on the basis of whatever support the Western world or France or the European Union can give us. It will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. Our responsibility is to charter a path which is about how we can develop our nations ourselves. It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves. And if we are going to look at the next 60 years as a period of transition, a period whereby we can stand on our own feet, our perspective has not to be what the French taxpayer decides to do with whatever surpluses that they have in France. They're welcome. They are appreciated. Whatever interventions that the French taxpayer through their governments make to us are appreciated. We're not going to lick a gift horse in the mouth. But this continent, with all that has happened, is still today the repository of at least 30% of the most important minerals of the world. It is a continent of vast, arable and fertile lands. It has the youngest population of any of the continents in the world. So it has the energy and the dynamism. We have seen it. These young men who are showing so much resilience and ingenuity in crossing the Sahara, finding ways to go across with rickety boats across the Mediterranean to really, those energies, we want to have those energies working inside our countries. And we're going to have those energies working in our countries if we begin to build systems that tell the young people of our country that their hopes, their opportunity are right here with us.
And that said, that's why we are premising today's conversation on, well, what happened then to the president's vision of a Ghana Beyond Aid? Now, let's tell you what the tranches are. 7 tranches. So far, we're told that we've received the 600 billion for this month already. So this month, 600 million. Have we received it, Bobo?
Well, I cannot confirm,
okay.
But my understanding was that was
right. The next one we expect to receive will be in November 2023, again this year. And then just some few months before we have the election, again May, same time next year, we're going to have 360 million. Another 360 million will come just on the eve of election 2024 in November. And then after we have a transition into the next government, post-2025, in May that year, we're going to receive another 360 million. It is going to be the same amount till 2026. All right, 3 billion. Disbursement period, 3 years, 7 tranches. Now, Bobo, oh, sorry, let me just go by your name.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, so...
I'm sure many of your viewers are used to calling me Bobo.
Bobo, okay, so yeah. So, does it make the whole mantra about Ghana Beyond Aid moot in any way?
I don't think so at all. In any event, I don't think that the context within which His Excellency the President made that statement should be seen as if to say Ghana was never going to require help, that Ghana was never going to require support, Ghana was never going to take debt, or that when a crisis of global proportions occasion us, we're not going to revert to institutions that have been established globally to provide those support when countries go into the situation that we find ourselves in here in Ghana. And so saying that we ought to work towards a Ghana beyond aid, which in itself is a vision, it's an aspiration that you work towards, not an event that then immediately materializes by reason only of the fact that His Excellency the President had said so. Doesn't mean that, when the need arises, we ought not do what is necessary, what is needful. Look, we can pretend all we want. Okay, we can do the politicking all we want. But the truth of the matter is that COVID was real. It was not a figment of anybody's creation. Its impact on economies across the world is real. Of course, every country's response or reaction or the impact on any country was different because of your own peculiar circumstances. We live in an economy where a new government comes in under an IMF program, inherited, works successfully to exit, had issues that needed to be dealt with, okay, including the banking sector. You had the energy sector that you needed to deal with. Recall that at a point, the Ministry of Finance was reporting these extraordinary expenditures below the line. Why? We needed to let people see that this is not regular budgetary expenditure that you had to incur. But yes, it's your debt.
Below the line.
Yes, of course.
And you were told consistently that was not the best way. You had to take the IMF to come and tell you to do the right thing.
The IMF never said so.
Then what did they say?
Oh, well,
why are you now reporting above the line?
I don't have a problem. It's your debt. Okay, I always relate our own personal circumstances. You earn a paycheck, I earn a paycheck. I spend that paycheck regularly to meet my household expenditure. If for some reason an emergency occurs at home that I require some extra funding that I don't have, I'll borrow, okay, to deal with that. But my regular paycheck will not change. And so if I'm doing my accounting and I want to distinguish my regular expenditure pattern from that extraordinary expenditure that I had to incur, I can treat it any which way I want.
I see.
And government, and I consistently have said that reporting should have been maintained to date. Because then
why don't you tell the IMF that?
Hold on. But we were all in this country when Tuna Mama, the IMF resident director then, confirmed that they were aware about these figures that government was reporting. When government was being accused of hiding figures, you didn't hear him. So it's not a question of somebody doing something untoward. I'm saying that those expenditures were necessary. They were critical. You needed to make them. And so when COVID strikes, how it impacts you will not be the same as Togo, which don't have this energy crisis that its government had to borrow to deal with. It won't impact you the same way as Ivory Coast, which did not have a banking sector crisis that its government had to borrow to deal with. But we're where we are. Government said that, look, let's look within. After all, we've been to IMF 16 times already. We know the prescriptions. They will tell you, cut expenditure, raise revenue, expenditure rationalization. Let's do it. Let's raise additional revenue. We all saw the brouhaha that was attendant to it. And another global event strikes.
Which one?
Russia and Ukraine. Real. Not the figment of anybody's creation. Unless, of course, you want to pretend as an ostrich and tell the good people of this country that you did not see that happen. And consistently, if you look at the IMF documentation that they have put out, they recognize, they admit that these extraneous factors impacted Ghana's economy in a way that required support. Does that then take away the vision of moving away and being self-sufficient? I'm asking you.
Am I the president? Why are you asking me this
But
question?
you pose the question.
So why am I
To
supposed
cast
to
it
answer?
in a certain light, as if to say, well,
Didn't the
That's-
president?
that-
Didn't the president?
but of course,
know?
at the
Didn't
time that the president- at the time
no,
that-
and was fully aware. And I'm sure
Of
he's
course.
also fully because
I
he had
agree
been
with you
preaching from
100%. See.
a Gajisbergian economy to
Of
one
course.
made of
Of
industrialization.
course. And how do you
Didn't you know?
do
And this
that?
has been captured rightly in this IMF executive summary document that precedes the main content of this well-elaborated 146 or 36-page document, that there were pre-existing fiscal and debt vulnerabilities, when he was communicating to the generality of the Ghanaian public that there was going to be Ghana beyond it. Ghana was going to be in an environment of self-sufficiency, even putting it to the face of the French president, Emmanuel Macron.
But of course.
Didn't he know that?
That what? That COVID was going to...
There were pre-existing vulnerabilities, there were structural difficulties of the economy.
I've indicated to you that you had your own peculiar circumstances. But at the time, the president knew that COVID was going to come, right? In 2017, when he was making the statement, he could read the crystal ball to tell us that COVID was going to happen. The president could read the crystal ball to see that in 2022, Russia was going to attack Ukraine and all sorts of issues will arise. Nobody knew. Okay? That doesn't mean that you cannot have a vision to move your country in a certain direction. In any event, moving Ghana from the Goggisberg economy of relying on export of raw materials
without added value.
Of course. So what was the purpose of the 1D1F?
What's the impact?
The impact is not going to happen overnight.
After 7 years?
It doesn't matter. Look,
then what matters?
Wait. It's a path.
Which path?
Path of growth. Path of transforming a nation. It's not an event.
That's true.
You require resources. You require capital that you don't have. That would allow you to support the private sector build 1,000 factories in one day. It will take time. People will have to develop business plans. It has to be evaluated. And then gradually. But it's a path that we all need to encourage ourselves to embark upon. It takes time. Succeeding governments would have to continue so that over time we can build an economy that clearly is one that has moved away from export of our raw materials and adding value. And it is happening as we speak. Okay, so let's not...
What is happening?
Of course, the transformation of our economy is happening.
Really?
Of course.
We're just with the IMF, cap in hand, begging, 3 billion, 7 tranches.
You see, of course, in the political environment that we find ourselves, we treat some of these things with contempt. But you ought to take a step back and ask yourself why the IMF and the World Bank were set up in the first place. In 2000, of course.
Didn't you know this before communicating this prior to 2017?
Communicating what? The circumstances that you go is irrelevant? I'm asking. The circumstances under which you revert to these multilateral institutions is immaterial. Like I said from the very beginning, we can do the politicking all we want. But the truth of the matter is that this economy has come from as far back as 2017, 2018, 2019. We all saw what the economy and the economic indicators were. And we all saw what happened in 2020 and where it took us and where the recovery when it commenced also had to take a backstage or derailed because of the exogenous factors. And government is committed that, look, we now have to go through this problem, reset our economy, and continue the transformation agenda that we commenced in 2017.